Are you thinking about shifting into instructional design or learning and development? Well, friend, I'm going to give you 6 questions to ask yourself, and I mean truly, really deep down, be honest with yourself. Ask yourself these questions in order to help you identify whether or not this is the right field for you. Hi friend, my name is Vanessa Alzate, the founder and CEO of Anchored Training and the Anchored ID Collective. And on this channel, we help aspiring instructional designers and e-learning developers just like you get off of the sidelines and get into the L&D game. So today, I'm going to give you an updated version of my 2020 video of Is Instructional Design Right for You? This is one of the first videos I did on my channel, and it has gotten a ton of views, and I figured it's probably time for an update. I have grown, I have learned, I've seen some things as I've grown my agency, and I really need to get you guys the questions to really ask yourself if this is the right field for you. Question 1. How flexible are you and willing to adapt to change? So there is nothing more consistent in this world than change. However, change in instructional design, it's like tale as old as time. And here's the reason why. So often learning and development instructional design in many organizations is the last to know about everything. You will often be writing content, working on a specific initiative, and then behind closed doors or in another meeting that you had no idea about, decisions will be made that will affect what it is that you're working on. I'm currently working on a project, and there's shifts that are happening in the business that are affecting the curriculum that I'm literally writing right now. For some, it can be a huge challenge to adapt to those changes and honestly cause them a lot of stress and anxiety. And I get for many, instructional design looks and seems like a great field to be in because it is truly wonderful. I mean, I love it, right? I love learning and development. I love everything about it. From the outside looking in, for many people, it looks like, you're like doing your thing, you're writing curriculum and this and that. But in all actuality, you're constantly being pulled into different directions. You're constantly having your priorities shifted. You're constantly dealing with change. For me, I have grown over the years to be a lot more easygoing when it comes to change. Like, I actually expect that, it to hit the fan. When it does, I'm never surprised. I just kind of let it roll and we just move on to the next thing. I just always like to keep a cool, calm head whenever things are, going awry, because that is truly my role as the lead instructional designer, as a learning and development professional, as the consultant, right? Is I have to be able to still see clearly and try and navigate the pieces and know how I can adjust or shift my priorities to meet the needs. Now, will that mean that I'm bending over backwards for everything? No, it just means that, okay, your priorities have shifted. So now this is what we can do within the time that is allotted. And this is how I can reshift what I've already worked on in order to meet those needs. And so for some people, change and flexibility causes high stress. There's different levels in instructional design in terms of how intense or how high pressure it is, right? So in my business, it's typically a little bit more high pressure because we are servicing customers, we're serving clients, right? And these are bigger name clients, so we have a higher level of expectation with timelines, all these things. Can be a high pressure gig, right? Where you're constantly shifting, you're constantly changing. So really think, and ask yourself, how are you with change and being flexible? Now, here's the thing. There's a million industries out there, and some are faster paced than others. So if you don't really want to deal with change and you kind of want to coast, which is cool, I'd probably try to get into the government route because it takes them a very long time to change. I mean, frankly, you'll probably still be using Adobe Captivate. For others, they thrive in the chaos. I like to tell people, if I'm not actually stressed, I probably wouldn't really know what to do with myself. And I think I thrive on the stress of life. So for me, high paced, high movement, flexible and changing, even in those industries, industries like SaaS, that's fine for me. But if you can't handle that high pace, or if that's just not the lifestyle that you want to live, which is totally fine, then you want to really think about this career for you and which industry is best for that career. The next question I want you to ask yourself is, are you detail oriented? I have found more often than not, there are a lot of instructional designers that are great and they're creative, but they're not as detail oriented, which is fine if you have something else to catch your fall. Meaning, if you have someone that comes in behind you to do some of your QC, if you learn to like stop, take a beat, take a day, take a few hours to get some fresh eyes and to get a fresh perspective and then QC your work. But if you're constantly working, and then you're like submitting storyboards with errors in them or like with things that are incomplete, like this is not going to be the best career for you, or it's going to be more of a struggle. I find like I'm not actually detail oriented, like I am, but I'm not, in that I am detail oriented enough, but I know that I still need someone to come behind me to QC my work, because I get to a point in which I no longer want to see it, I no longer want to know anything about it, and I no longer, you know, I'm done. This is life, right? Like, you know it's supposed to be there, so your eyes start to play tricks on you, start to see things. And that is normal. So what I do is I build in time for people to go behind me and QC my work, right? And to go and to, you know, help adjust things. Or I know like I'm a good writer, but I still need someone to like wordsmith my thoughts. Sometimes I just like need to get it out there out of my head, and then I, you know, can tweak it after. When you know these things about yourself, you can shift and you can change, or you can change your process or make additions to your process in order to make up for those things. But all in all, you have to be detail oriented. You have to know where, even not even just in the writing and not even with like things like spelling errors, right? Like if you're putting together a program, you need to know all the different pieces that have to be part of that program. And so often in many organizations, the instructional designer is also the project manager. So you're also managing people's times, people's schedules, trying to get, you know, maybe classrooms together. You're sending out invitations for sessions. Maybe you're pulling together meetings for subject matter experts. You're pulling together reviews for stakeholders. You have a lot of pieces and a lot of details that you have to manage. So if you're not stopping and figuring out, okay, what are the pieces that I need to put together, and how am I managing my time, and how am I managing my project, and making sure that you're tracking all of that, it can become very hard and overwhelming. A lot comes at an instructional designer. You're managing multiple projects. Like, this is a huge question for freelance instructional designers, is how do I manage so many projects? Part of it is that you have to be detail oriented, and you have to stop and take a beat and manage your time and manage your project. So I really recommend identifying what you need in order to build up that skill to be detail oriented. And if you cannot be bothered by managing a project and doing all of those things, I would really be cognizant of the instructional design roles that you apply to. And you'll want to look for more of those roles that have project managers on staff that can helping you with being detail oriented, with you know, having that QC expert and things like that, and you really stay in that creative space. Those roles are out there. They're fewer than I would say where you're really doing a lot of it. And if you're getting into freelance and you're not an agency, you really have to be all of the things. So really think about that. The next question I want you to honestly ask yourself is, do you honestly like helping others? I think for most people say, yeah, I like helping others, like for the good of the community. But I want you to really dig deep on this question, right? And I'm going to ask you a follow-up to this. Do you like helping others and getting asked a million questions? Because honestly, I feel like as an instructional designer, that is part of your role. You are constantly getting asked a million questions. Often too, when you're managing multiple clients or multiple projects, it can often feel like the same question over and over and over again. And for some people, they don't love that. For some people, that is such a huge source of frustration. And so maybe instructional design isn't for you, but maybe development is, right? Or maybe just not being someone that is so client facing. When you're in instructional design, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but you really are working so much with people, almost more than building the products, that you're constantly answering the same questions. Maybe you're answering the same questions in the same project. Maybe you're answering the same questions, you know, about the same, you know, like what is SCORM? You know, I still answer that question a lot for the same people. And if those types of things frustrate you, it can be difficult working in instructional design in certain industries, you know, especially when you're like the sole instructional designer. People still are not like fully clear as like what your role is and like all the things that make up like instructional design. I mentioned earlier, one of the questions I get a lot is, what is SCORM? Like, am I able to do that? Like, am I able to do this? You know, whatever it is. And it's something usually like tracking a score or something like that. I get that same question. I do a lot of training on that content, and yet I'm still answering that question. For some people, they can't handle being in things like HR, you know what I mean? Because you get the same questions from so many people, it gets frustrating, it gets annoying. And sometimes that can happen in instructional design. Really think about if you are someone that can handle helping people and really answering the same questions over and over and over again, like what is your process and like all of those things, and like walking through the same motions over and over. And to that, I want you to also ask yourself, truly, do you want to work collaboratively? Instructional design, that is the name of the game. You are having to work collaboratively throughout the entire process. You have to work with subject matter experts, you know, work with stakeholders, work with the business, identify like what their needs, what needs to be in the curriculum, where are the sources, what are all the pieces. This is not a, okay, here's the content, go forth and conquer type role. You really have to work with others, even if they give you all of the content up front. And then, you know, you just have to check in with them for like the review. Even then, you are still finding ways to work collaboratively. Really think about, is that something that you want to do? If you're someone that truly wants to be independent, and I know these kinds of people that like, I just want to work independently and I don't want to like worry about other people. I don't want to worry about, you know, like talking to others, this is not going to be the role for you. Most of your time is going to be spent talking to others and coordinating other people. So really think about, is that something that you want to be doing day in and day out? The next question I want you to ask yourself is, can you decode SME speak? I almost think of it as like, do you have a special skill of, can you break it down to me like I'm 5? So if you can do that, this is the gig for you. Often we have to get into these brilliant brains of people and break it down into a way that you can understand it, and then you're going to be able to translate it to someone else. And that is like so much of the role. So if you have a knack of making complex or difficult to understand concepts easy to understand, then by all means, come call Anchor Training and let's have a conversation about you working here, because that is a huge part of it, right? Is really understanding the vision in their brain and bringing it to life, or understanding that concept in their brain and making it something that a new hire or someone that has no idea or someone that's 5 could easily understand. That is something that is not really in your wheelhouse, and it's harder to understand, you know, certain concepts and things like that, or certain industries. Like you won't really find me in like high super technical industries. Then you're going to want to think about, you know, is that instructional design role right for me? Now, it doesn't mean all instructional design roles aren't for you, because there are industries that are easier to understand, or ones that you might have more insight and background in that are easier for you to decode. But then there's going to be certain roles that you're not going to want to apply to because you're not going to shine, and you don't want to end up in a role where you're not going to shine. Really think about, can you decode that SME speak, and is that going to be the place for you? And then my last question is a repeat from my last video that of course I'll link to make sure you can go back and watch that as well. But are you good at meeting the needs of the business and building relationships? Yes, you always want to do right for the learner, and that's always in your back pocket. That's always the thing that you are like working on. However, if you're not also meeting the needs of the business and building relationships, this is a really hard place for you to be in. So really ask yourself, how are you at being able to find a win-win for your learners and the business, as well as how are you at building relationships? If you cannot get the business, your stakeholders, your subject matter experts to want to talk to you, to want to work with you, to want to answer you back, to want to really collaborate together, this is a very hard place to be in. Again, if you don't want to work collaboratively and really build relationships, learn to read the room, be a servant leader, then instructional design is going to be a really hard place for you to be in. You're not in instructional design to be like the star of the show, right? You're in instructional design to be behind the scenes. You're in instructional design to serve others, to serve your learners. So really think about that when you are figuring out if this is the right role for you. If you need the reward and the recognition all the time, this is probably not going to be a place that you're going to find that. Often we don't get the reward and the recognition that we honestly deserve. I want you to really think about these questions as you're identifying whether or not instructional design is for you. And if you want more help as to what this all means, what could instructional design look like for me? What does freelancing look like? I want you to join the Anchored ID Collective. The information will be down below. That is your community for high-performing instructional designers just like you, to connect, to learn more from each other, from each other's experiences. And as a member of the collective, you get 20% off of all of the courses that we offer, such as the Anchored ID process course and my course for people who are looking to become freelance instructional designers that I'm now relaunching Destination ID. Want more information about that? Click the link down below and send me a DM. Friends, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in our next video. Bye!